This episode of the Halloween podcast is brought to you by Acorns, the app that invests your change automatically. If you're like me, you have zero inside of your savings for future you. What Acorns does is rounds up all of your debit card purchases and invests that change for you automatically. I got started months ago and my account is slowly growing for future me. I didn't even notice it coming out of my bank account. It's that subtle. Support the Halloween podcast by signing up using our link. You get a $5 sign-on bonus, and so do we. Just go to thehalloweenpodcast.com/acorns, click on the banner, and get signed up. That's thehalloweenpodcast.com/acorns. Now let's get the show started.
Which is where some let us talk about some more of the details, because in terms of themes, there's a lot going on here. I think it's like a self-proclaimed man of reason goes from civilization to a place where magic and demons still exist, and his whole world is turned upside down once he faces the horseman for the first time. But it doesn't stop him from making his smart observations. He pretends to be in control all the time, but you can see that under the surface he's quite unsure and sensitive, which makes him a great Burton character. A lot of his protagonists are like that. And even after the whole case seems resolved, he still picks up things which don't quite add up and goes right back after he realizes his mistake. And also, this film taking place at the brink of a new millennium while also coming out in 1999 is another nice touch.
Yeah, didn't think of that.
Yeah, but I think that's actually really, really cool. There's one thing that kind of bugged me, even the first time I saw this. And remember, I was like 15 or 16. And the mayor says, like, yeah, he's not the fourth victim, he's the fifth one. 5 victims and 4 graves. And we know that one of them is a woman. I figured it out immediately what he meant by that. I mean, yeah, sure, show the stomach wound. Alright, but I don't think the dissection was truly necessary.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And also, when Crane insists of operating alone, I was afraid the first time that he would do something perverted with the body.
I don't know about that. I just thought he it just goes with his character. He's just supposed to be some weirdo.
Yeah,
like
which is really, really cool how they establish it when he first arrives at the at the place of the newest murder, and then he tries to he imitates the horse riding and says, "Did you move the body? You're not supposed to move the body. Why? Because." And and then he puts out this contraption which makes him look like a weirdo even more.
Yeah.
And the other people they don't quite know what to make of it. Yeah, it's really this nice clash of like simple townsfolk in a way, and this guy who at least seems to be a little bit more educated. And but also when it turns out that some of the townsfolk, they're actually much more smart than they seem to be at first. That there's this whole like scheme going on, like this revelation later on in a way. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff there. And I mean, with the part like where he dissects the body, it's squeamish gore effect. Which is kind of funny, but it's still like it's this big. They play it as this big revelation where it's like the widow was with child. I was like, yeah, I figured this out 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that seemed like another thing of why a lot of this stuff seems way over the top.
Yeah, that's one of the things exactly. There's one part of funny trivia I want to say right here. There were two stuntmen who played the Headless Horseman, because when it wasn't Christopher Walken, when he has the face, it is actually the Headless Horseman, it's two stuntmen. I'm guessing one did the riding and the other guy the fight scenes. And one of them, probably who did the latter, was Ray Park, Darth Maul himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I found this out only recently and it blew my mind. Like, I looked into the credit. I read the credits normally anyways, but this was the first time where I noticed his name. And wait a minute, Ray Park? But yeah, it's Darth Maul.
Yeah, there he is, probably fighting.
yeah, it's clear. Like, he has a great presence with his body. I mean, that's why the custom is Darth Maul too. Like, a lot of, like, a presence in terms of stunts and movement. And speaking of stunts, Depp did the stunt where he's dragged by the horses himself, which is pretty nice too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of atmosphere and all of that, which is really funny in terms of the Headless Horseman, because it is, and it's also fitting that I am here talking about it with you, and not any other person who probably wanted to talk about Sleepy Hollow, because this Headless Horseman stuff dates back to Middle Ages in Europe, largely based in Celtic and German folklore. And
of course,
and the Washington Irving version, it's considered to be the most famous, but in most areas of the United States during the time of the story's publishing had their own stories of Headless Horsemen. And Irving is said to be inspired by the headless body of the Hessian Jäger, like renowned sharpshooters and horsemen during those times, who was found in Sleepy Hollow. The real Van Tassels buried him in old Dutch burying ground in an unmarked grave. He was actually historically, or like in the story, I'm not quite sure, but he was decapitated by cannonball.
What a way to get decapitated.
Yeah, which is really funny, because just 1 year later, The Patriot with Mel Gibson came out, which takes place in the Revolutionary War, and there we actually see a soldier getting decapitated by a cannonball. Sadly, it's not one of the British ones, which is so sad. It's actually one of the American soldiers, because it would be so funny to pretend that is actually the horseman. Yeah,
that's a great movie too, though.
I really like it. It's easily Roland Emmerich's best movie. I mean, that's not a high bar, because he does nothing but crap, but that one is quite good.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah, I really like it. Lot of good casting there too. But yeah, I mean, it's all of that in terms of the Hessian. I don't know. That's a lot of fighters who were sent from Germany to help the Brits in the war. They were actually from that area in Germany, Hessen-Kassel, and so yeah, it's quite fun that even in the original it's supposed to be this foreign guy who fought for the Brits, and here they make him more demonic and evil. But I love his costume and sword design too. Just he looks so. It looks like something right out of like this, like a fantasy video game or something. When it's even like the individualized sword, which is like this the snake head with an open mouth.
Yeah, they did a great job dressing him.
Oh yeah, such a cool costume with a cloak, the vest, and the boots, and the sword. The sword looks great.
See, he doesn't look like just your old regular soldier. He looks like somebody of importance.
Oh yeah. Clearly somebody who put a lot of effort into his appearance in more than one way, because he even sharpened his teeth, which is an awesome sequence, which is also really funny, and it made me think of the fact how the battle flashback is filmed with like mostly like silhouettes of soldiers fighting each other, because Francis Ford Coppola is an executive producer credit on this. And Bram Stoker's Dracula, which he directed, came out in 1992. And this film, while not as extravagant in terms of style and theatrics, sometimes seems like it could take place within the same universe.
You think so?
Yeah, sometimes it kind of seems like that, which is kind of like, is that maybe also some of the Coppola influence? Because there's some imagery which looks familiar. I mean, like I said, in terms of the Coppola one, that one is just so out there in terms of style, but that's also clearly inspired by Hammer, and they did much more ambitious things with the effects there too, where they wanted to they wanted every effect to be happen actually in camera, and they did a lot of old school stuff with it, and in this case it's like a little bit more modern and conventional looking in a way, but it's kind of fun to maybe think about this takes place in the same universe just a couple of years earlier. But I don't know, in terms of style, it always reminded me of that. If, like, Coppola's name on this, that can't be a huge coincidence. Like, when he did Bram Stoker's Dracula, then a few years later this thing came out. There might have been something going on.
Yeah, it could have been.
Which is really funny, because I proposed doing Bram Stoker's Dracula 2 and you declined immediately.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, no thanks.
Which was really a shame. I like that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we can do it not for the countdown, but just felt like that one really wouldn't have fit the theme as much as I wanted it to.
I see. Okay. I thought maybe you just didn't like it.
No, it was more of trying to fit the theme better with the 31 show, but we can definitely do it for like a regular show. But this year we're supposed to have a theme, and I'm kind of trying to keep it like a certain type of deal. This movie, to me, is something that like a 16-year-old would watch, 13-year-old would watch, but Dracula probably not.
Yeah, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's a lot more slow and experimental. That it doesn't have the broader appeal of this film. You're right. So wise decision on that part when it comes to that, exactly. Speaking of Dracula, going back to Christopher Lee real quick, I'm just full of great segues in this episode today. His guest part in this, which is clearly a throwback because he was a big star in the Hammer era. This was actually the first bit of work he had in years. He was somewhat forgotten after his Hammer career, and this kind of put him on the map again. I have a quote from him right here about this, which is really fascinating. The event that signaled a renewal for me, he wrote in his autobiography, was the invitation from the energetic director Tim Burton to appear for just 5 minutes in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Call no man happy until he's dead, but those 5 minutes, right at the beginning of the story, were enough in some strange way to prefigure a roll of luck that has lasted me through until the time of writing. When people in the business said, "He's back!" they didn't mean that they'd seen me in London, but that I was getting work. A perception like that tends to lead you getting more.
I didn't know that he had taken time off.
In a way, but this was right at the start of his career renaissance. Like 2 years after this, he appeared in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then he was also in the Star Wars prequels and a lot of other Burton movies too. So it was the start of a revival in a way.
Yeah, I can see. There wasn't really much work that he did before this. He did like mini-series.
Yeah, a lot of smaller stuff. But then he's like in this big mainstream horror movie, which is also fascinating because this type of movie, this kind of like old-fashioned thing that doesn't really get made anymore. Like nowadays, like horror movies they always take place in the 70s or some like old, or like in the 80s. But you don't have these types of horror movie anymore where it's a period piece, pretty much. Where it's just this throwback to the early days, like 18th or 19th century.
Right.
Which is really interesting. Like sometimes there were some more Hammer Studios actually did some films after this. Like you have like the Woman in Black films. I think you have some other stuff, but that was much more low budget and much more lingering on the jump scares. There are only 2 jump scares in this movie, actually, which is pretty nice.
The blood and the witch?
There's the witch, and then when the heads come out of the the tree. There's like this big music sting, and I count that as a jump scare because the blood that has a much more build up, where it's not like this big orchestra sting when it comes out of the Iron Lady. So I don't count that. But yeah, only 2 jump scares in this, which is really nice. Also, I have another. Creepy. It is. Oh god, incredibly creepy. Me and my brother were quite disturbed by that scene. There's also this great thing where we see like that's the last dream sequence when we see like this white church, and then his father comes out, and when he has his back to the camera, he looks and walks like the Headless Horseman. Which crazy. Is really nice, where like reality is creeping into the dream. And there's this thing, and it's like his father, like the brief times we see him, has a great presence about him. And I have another great trivia for you, because 5 actors featured in this also later appeared in the oh so beloved Harry Potter film franchise. We have Richard Griffiths, who plays the mayor here, as Vernon Dursley, Harry's uncle. So you've seen him, definitely. Miranda Richardson, who plays the stepmom, Lady Van Tassel. She plays Rita Skeeter, a nosy reporter. She only appears in the 4th movie, so you haven't seen her. Then we have Michael Gambon playing Baltus Van Tassel. He took over the role of Dumbledore from film 3 on, after Richard Harris died. So you haven't seen him either in the franchise. And there's, in a small part, I think he plays like Van Ripper, he's credited. I don't remember who that is. Maybe he was one of the guys who hangs out with Brom. But he voices the giant Grob in Order of the Phoenix, which is the 5th movie. And in the spin-off film series Fantastic Beasts, Johnny Depp plays the villain Gellert Grindelwald. So, yeah, 5 actors who later appeared in that famous franchise, which is really funny. And then we have also 2 actors who were in Star Wars and other things.
Did that come out? It came out after this, right? Harry Potter, was it that 90?
Harry Potter was like 2 years after this, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
About 1 or 2 years after. I think about 2000, 2001.
Okay.
Must have been that was when the first Harry Potter came out. But none of Richard Griffiths wasn't the first Harry Potter. That was the only one who was in the first Harry Potter. Of the actors here, the other ones appeared later. And there's one other weird thing, and I don't know if this was only on the German DVD, but I have it in the DVD version I have, and maybe some of you people out there who have like I think that was the double disc release, maybe you can look for it. The DVD I have has a section in the special features that points out numerous mistakes and goofs in the film. Including specific clips. Like, I have never seen the special features of a film actually doing the work for the nitpickers among the viewers.
That's cool. Did you write any down?
I have some memorized. Like, there's one part when for example, when Johnny Depp hacks the tree open and blood spills all over him. Like, the blood on his face changes. Like, it dries up way too fast, and there's one shot in between where the blood stains don't match up with the ones before and after. And that gets pointed out. The way Christina Ricci rides her horse is not time appropriate for a lady. They point that one out. There were a couple of other ones I don't quite remember. There were only a handful of goofs they mentioned. But it was just so weird. I think there's also like some type of like, this type of clothing wasn't worn back then or something. I don't know.
Yeah, those aren't fun. I'm more into the like the goofs of this one that I see right here on IMDb when Ichabod Crane embraces Katrina. The sleeve on her arm is pulled up slightly, revealing a modern wristwatch. Those are the ones I like. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. There's one other thing when Michael Gambon is dragged on the rope through a graveyard. He hits one of the gravestones and it wobbles. That one I actually discovered on my own.
Oh, nice.
It's very brief, and it's funny because that's not the first time this happened in a Tim Burton movie. That also happened in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito briefly touches a gravestone and it shakes. But speaking of that death scene, that's the best kill in the movie. When Michael Gambon is standing in the church and then this stake pierces through his chest.
And then stake or whatever it was.
Yeah, and then he gets pulled out and the glass shatters. That's amazing. That's an amazing death.
Like, I don't think, like, physically, I don't think that would work. Like,
Probably not.
He would have had to have thrown it with so much force in order to
it's a strong
impale him.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a strong ghost demon rider, so I guess anything goes.
And then even if you pulled on the rope, like, it would probably pull it out of his body, not take him with, like. And then when he lands on the ground, I don't think, like, it probably would have broken his. I don't know.
Yeah, it's cartoonish, but it's a great death. Also, funny thing because Michael Gambon wanted to keep his severed head and send it via proxy to interviews and dinner parties as a joke.
That's awesome.
So much blood, so many decapitations. But yeah, in the way that the blood kind of looks fake, of course. I mean, in terms of keeping within the style of a Hammer horror film, so it makes it a little bit more fun. Of course, it makes it probably wasn't in the original script. Like that was way more serious and gory, and this one makes it a little bit more of a goofy touch with it. I mean, there are certain kills which are more gruesome than others and taken more seriously, especially when he breaks into the house and kills like the parents of a boy beneath the floorboards. That is clearly played for horror and shock. But there are others which you can have a lot more fun with, and some of those are great.
Yeah, like that part I don't really understand. Was the Headless Horseman supposed to go after all three of them?
That's also one part which feels unnecessary to me, because I don't think the kid had anything to do with it.
Yeah, like was he supposed to be sent to kill everyone in the house? Like that was the whole thing, in the house, so as he was leaving, he didn't think there was anybody else there, and then he heard the noise and he went to go kill the last one of them?
Maybe
I don't
maybe
know.
that might have been the thing. Kill everyone in that house. Maybe that was actually the thing, because when she tells later who knew about it, she didn't mention the kid. So I'm not quite sure, because that's also at a point where we don't know what's going on yet. So maybe that was just maybe trying to reassure that the horseman had a mind on its own instead of being puppeteered by someone. But I still think it was kind of necessary. That was also actually when he gets dragged out from underneath the floorboards. That was one of the parts which was cut out of the German cinema release.
Okay.
They didn't want that in the movie, and later in the DVD it was put back in. So we have a complete version now, which is rated 16. But yeah, that's one of the parts which I feel is kind of unnecessary. But I think Tim Burton did it. He said once that he doesn't like it when in horror movies kids are spared, like how they always get the special treatment and get away with everything. He wanted this kind of shock value on purpose, where it's like, no, in our film we don't mess around with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
only if it's necessary.
Like I don't like it when kids get harmed in movies.
Right, if it's not necessary, like, because that was not necessary at all.
Absolutely not.
It didn't do anything to the plot.
No, but they also don't share it in detail, so it was kind of like, okay, that's nice enough, but still, I mean, I really don't like it. Have you seen the remake of The Hills Have Eyes?
I have.
There's one part where I don't think the baby gets harmed, but there's like this one part where the baby gets like threatened with a gun, and it's like this tiny baby, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it's being a dad now, that type of stuff gets me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I really don't like that stuff, but it's. I mean, if it's done well in terms of like a purpose, or maybe like they get in danger, but then they get out just at the last minute, then I don't mind it. But don't kill your kids. But in this case, I don't know. It was just this kind of like his middle finger to. I want to do something a little bit more bold with this type of horror. So whatever. I mean, Tim Burton himself has kids, so I think he. But this was before he became a father, I think. So he might have had a different attitude back then.
Maybe.
he didn't. He met Helen Bonham Carter like 2 years later. But yeah, that's one of the first things. That's one funny thing, because the horse that Ichabod Crane rides provided a lot of amusement for the cast and crew because it was extremely flatulent. Sadly, that's not in the movie, but it's kind of like a worn down looking horse. How it's like kind of dirty.
Yeah. What was his name? The horse name, was it Gunsmoke? Gunpowder?
Gunpowder. Yeah.
Gunpowder.
That was his name, Gunpowder. And the name of the horseman's horse was Daredevil, which is Brom's horse's name in the original tale. So they changed that. Also, one other funny trivia thing, the man in the opening scene in the carriage, like Peter Van Tassel, I think, is actually played by Martin Landau, who won an Oscar for playing Bela Lugosi in Ed Wood.
Oh, wow.
Just this very, very small role for this great actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also worked again with Burton in the stop-motion version of Frankenweenie. And funnily enough, the type of carriage he's riding in is called a landau.
Doesn't Tim Burton like to do that? Put like really known actors in his movies for like a couple of minutes? Isn't that what he did in Edward Scissorhands?
Yeah, I mean, he did that with like Vincent Price, but that makes sense to cast him as this scientist and giving him this bit part. I mean, this very important part. This one, it really isn't an important part. It was just kind of like...
It's random.
I think that was part of a... I think that scene is the only bit they actually filmed in America as part of some reshoots. And it was shot by a different cinematographer, too. So it was just maybe like, we need some kind of actor. Hey, let's get him back again. And so the other cinematographer, I think he shot American Beauty. He did it as a favor to the actual cinematographer who he was friends with, and shot that scene, which is really funny in the very first scene when you see like that scarecrow, and then it's blood all over it, and it's like that scarecrow is just like Tim Burton right in your face.
That scarecrow was pretty cool.
When I saw that scarecrow for the first time, I was like, yep, definitely a Tim Burton movie. I love it.
Yeah.
so much stuff. But I think that's it with most of the important trivia, I guess. And yeah, I mean, do you have anything more to say in terms of what do you think of this movie in general?
Well, my final thoughts, it was an okay. I mean, at the beginning, I was like, oh, of course, Lasse would make me want to watch this one, and and so I was like, okay. And then I think about maybe 10 minutes in, I was like, okay, I can dig this. So I started watching it, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. And then it just started getting a little bit weirder. I couldn't get over Johnny Depp's performance because he's just so awkward, and I don't remember this character being awkward. So I don't know. It kind of gave me a lot of sense as like, what's the name of that other?
Which one?
Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes. It kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, but I think that was also one of the inspirations, kind of like let's make our own version of Sherlock Holmes. He kind of fits right into that type of characters.
Yeah, because Sherlock Holmes was supposed to be like this very not simpleton, but like he's trying to be more. He's very progressive in whatever he's trying to learn. Like he's wanting to know more about bodies and like how they're getting there, yada yada. Same with Ichabod Crane. He wanted to know, like he didn't want to take the "he was in the water so he drowned" explanation. He wanted to know like how did he get into the water and that type of stuff. So that's it. Kind of made me think of that in a way.
Definitely, like how he has this deduction, how he's also kooky but reasonable in a lot of ways, and much more progressive than the other people around him, like ahead of his time.
Yeah, he's ahead of his time, which makes him look dumb compared to everybody else, because he knows what he's talking about, but he needs to try to explain what he's doing to people that wouldn't get it, and he just can't do that because they won't get it. So he just looks weird for trying to explain to them what he's doing. Like that's kind of the sense I got.
He's a misfit in that regard, which makes him a quintessential Burton character, of course. Mm-hmm. Like how he fights for sense and justice, and also how his worldview is completely shaken when it's like seeing is believing. Yeah, and then it turns out, there is actually a demon Ghost Rider there. A Ghost Rider. Oh, Marvel reference.
Well, I wonder when he got back to New York if like he would do more research on that type of stuff where he's at now. So if there was like a continuation of the story, it might have been like, it could have been a cool miniseries.
Oh yeah, I mean we kind of did that in the Sleepy Hollow series later on, where we have a character who's literally out of time, where he's in the wrong time, and working with these modern devices and modern things, and where you not just have the Headless Horseman, you have several spooks haunting the town. And all of it. I mean, I watched just a few episodes of it. I have the first season here, but I haven't finished it. But so far, from what I've seen, I thought that was fine. That was a fine idea for a series. But it's clearly a different take on it, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same of it, which is actually really cool that we had several adaptations of Sleepy Hollow, and none of them has been the same thing again. They have been all quite different from each other, which is really nice. And it might be only a matter of time until they try this again in film form, maybe. But I'm not quite sure, because now when we have this show where you have the Headless Horseman also riding around with a machine gun, I don't think you can do much more.
Yeah, I mean a laser gun.
Oh god,
I don't know what to give him.
Going totally Jason X with this.
Yeah,
it's like Jason went to space.
I watched Jason X as like a spoof. Like me and Mandy, we finished watching a movie on TV, and then all of a sudden something else comes on, and we're like, okay, we'll leave it on that channel. And it was Jason X that came up, and we were sitting there going, okay, cool. We saw like the first 20 minutes or so, and then by that point we were just so invested to where we were like, we just have to finish it. And it was the stupidest thing we've ever seen.
I am so proud of the fact that I haven't seen any of those movies.
Oh wow.
Not a single one of them.
Well, the cool thing is that I watched my first full Jason movie for the Halloween podcast the first year. Like, I think we saw Jason Takes Manhattan. We did that one the first year. Not with you, of course, with somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't remember who did it. It was such a long time ago. It's 3 years now. But yeah, that's the once that was the first time I actually saw a Jason movie.
When it was Jason Takes Manhattan. I mean, I know certain bits of it. Jason Takes Manhattan, there's this great thing where he kicks over the ghetto blaster. That's a great bit. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I've seen all the Freddy Krueger movies, but not the Jason movies.
I haven't seen a Freddy Krueger one either.
Oh, okay, but I've seen all of those. I actually watched them like binge watching style within like 2 or 3 days, which was a real mistake. Mm.
Yeah,
because when you watch them back to back, you realize how redundant it becomes after a while.
Well, I do want to watch them, but it kind of just seems like I need to watch them with somebody. Like,
watching it with somebody would be better. I watch them alone.
Yeah, because if you watch them alone, you've seen the way I watch stuff. I have zero reaction when it comes to any of this stuff. So in my mind, I'm just watching it, and it's just going into the brain, and the brain's processing it, and then it leaves. But with you, I mean, when I'd watch stuff with you, you'd have like this huge reaction, and then it makes me think like, wow, I should really be paying more attention, because if Lasse is getting this much of reaction out of something, I need to be paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just have to watch those with somebody, and my wife doesn't want to watch them. I could watch them with Callie, but I think she's still too young for that. She's 12, so
they're pretty gory and raunchy, especially the first one. The first one is prepare yourself, because I think through pop culture you might have a a false view of what the series actually is and how it started, because it starts pretty serious. Like, Freddy is not the goofy, jokey character in the first one he later became. I mean, he's entertaining, he has personality in his own right, but it's not the type of humor that would dominate the later movies.
Yeah, isn't he like a child molester or something like that?
It's only hinted at that he's a child molester. It's mostly like a child murderer, and then you just kind of assume that part of the story too. In the remake, they make him a child molester very overtly, which makes it creepy, not in a fun way.
Yeah.
But then also a funny link, because Johnny Depp had his film debut in the first Freddy movie.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was the first role he ever had. He plays one of the victims, a pretty big role too, and he's one of the best actors in it too. Like, even that early on, you can tell that there's something about him that would make him a star later on. He has one of the best deaths too.
Yeah, isn't that the one everyone talks about, that there's just like gallons of blood that comes out of him?
Yeah, out of a bed. He gets sucked into the bed, and then it explodes in this effect. It's a really good scene, and he's really good in it too. Yeah. I think he is actually the last victim, in a way, like the last victim of the friends of the main character, at least. It's not the best death scene. The best death scene is the very first one, which kind of peaks early in a way, because no death scene is as great as that one after that. But it's still it's still a pretty good movie in a lot of ways, when you can and then decide for yourself which ones. I think the fourth movie has no plot. Pretty sure that movie just has no story at all. It's just things happening.
I'll have to check them out, because I mean, it's something I've been wanting to do for a while. I just never have really. But I'll get to it someday.
Oh yeah, totally. Wow, we got on a huge tangents talking about the other iconic horror movies of our times. Yeah. But I mean, this is kind of like a link too. Yay, another segue. I'm just full of them today, because it was kind of like because of Wes Craven, who reinvented like the horror slasher genre with Scream, where the studio took an interest in the Sleepy Hollow script again. That was part of it. We were like, oh, okay, this is a thing again now. Let's do this too. I mean, and it's not like a Scream, of course, but that kind of, before that, horror in the mainstream was dead pretty much. And then Scream brought it back to some extent. I mean, it was a huge hit, people liked it. And then we were like, okay, now we can do something too again. And I think Paramount had the Jason movies, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, and it's funny, because I watched this for the first time now. I watched it on Netflix because it was easier to make notes that way, instead of pulling out my DVD. And it's funny because in the Netflix version, the Paramount logo appears. In the European version, it doesn't. There it just shows the Mandalay Pictures logo. It starts with that one, so it has a different distributor in Germany, which is always cool when you see that. When you have grown up with a certain version and the start of the movie already is different, that threw me off a little bit.
Yeah. Gives you a nice sense that you're going to watch something new.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, I would recommend.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they were making another Scream movie. I just looked that up right now.
Oh, yeah, Scream, right.
Scream 5.
Yeah, they're doing that again. I think, wasn't there Scream 5 already? Or did they actually stop with Screforum, as I like to call it?
Well, from what I see on my screen, Scream 4 was 2011. That was the last one. They have another one coming 2022, Scream 5.
Then there was a TV show too, right?
Yeah, there was a TV show.
Yeah, maybe I was mistaken with that one. But yeah, Scream 4, or like I said, Screforum, as the poster calls it. Just like Fantastic in 2015. It was really funny when I went to the new Fantastic Four movie. I actually went to the counter and said, yeah, 1 ticket for Fantastic. And the guy was like, all right.
Oh, wow.
He knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to this Sleepy Hollow stuff. So you enjoyed it for what it was. You said it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible. It's not something I would go out and seek again. Like if I was looking for something to watch, and I'm scrolling through Netflix, I don't think I'd stop at Sleepy Hollow. I'd probably watch something else. But I mean, if Callie or my son comes up and says, "Hey, have you ever heard of like the Headless Horseman?" and I'd be like, "Well, I sure have. Here you go. Let's watch the movie." That's probably the only way I'd watch it again.
But you should, with your kids, you should watch the Disney version.
Yeah,
if they would get a kick out of that. It's funny, it's goofy, and it has some horror stuff at the end, but it's still in a playful, over the top way, right. Where I think they would enjoy it a lot more than this. I mean, there's also there's some sexual stuff in this. There's a lot of blood. Oh God, so much blood. But yeah, I can't wait to actually show this to my little brother too at some point. I think he would enjoy it to some extent too. And also the last bit of trivia which just came to my mind, because there's also a link to the video game Skyrim. Because
really?
and I've never seen this. I've never seen this in person, but there is a very, very rare chance that when you are roaming the fields of Skyrim during the night, you can actually encounter the Headless Horseman. It's very, very brief. You really have to look out for it, or you have a huge amount of I've played tons and tons of hours of Skyrim, and I've never walked into him. But there's this ghostly figure on a horse with an axe, and he has no head. So it's the Headless Horseman. You can find him in Skyrim, but I haven't seen him anywhere in person. I've seen just clips and videos of other people who have seen him.
I see him right here. That's crazy.
Yeah. Brief encounter. But like I said, the Headless Horseman, he can show up anywhere in certain... It wouldn't actually... I'm actually really surprised, because I'm playing Witcher 3 at the time. Okay. And I don't think you can... I don't think there's actually a reference to because they make so many other references to Arthurian legend and other fantasy things in that game. And there's not a mention, nor can you actually encounter the Headless Horseman, which is a really big miss in my opinion, because you would think that would fit right in. They have several Game of Thrones references in that game. You would think maybe the Headless Horseman would fit right in there with all the werewolves and ghouls and goblins and witches, right? And references to other fairy tales too. But no Headless Horseman, which is I guess that's too far. I guess that's too far away, because that's kind of a big part of American folklore now. But I mean, it was originated in Europe, so I really don't know what's stopping them. Maybe there is actually one reference, and I just never saw it. I have to look that up. But
is there any copyright to it? I don't think there is.
I actually don't think. I mean, if Skyrim could do it, and like I said, it's not. It's just it could just be a Headless Horseman, it's just Washington Irving took this thing and made it part of his story. I don't think it's copyrighted in any way. I think Sleepy Hollow might be, but if it's just a Headless Horseman, you also have there's a Headless Horseman in Goosebumps 2, which is also right. Just old. There's an old-fashioned guy on a horse and fire is coming out of his neck. I actually saw that when I was in America in 2018. I saw it in the cinema with a friend I visited.
Well, 2018. That was the last time you were here?
Yeah.
Wow, it's been 2 years already? My goodness.
Oh, yeah. That was right in between my two visits. That was when I was near the Chicago area. I saw that movie. But yeah, so much stuff has happened since then, and this one, I mean, I kind of figured your attitude towards this movie. I wasn't sure that you probably had seen it, but maybe forgotten about it. But I'm actually really glad that you had quite a lot of positive things to say about it, because I mean, a lot of people already know what I think of it, and it being pretty much the first horror movie I've ever seen. And being a huge Tim Burton fan, I really like it. I think it's the atmosphere is captivating right away. It is very well made. with a great vision. The actors are all really good. It's appropriately goofy sometimes. It has a great score, just great music, and a lot of really really cool stuff. Individual scenes, good pace too. All around, it just brings me into the Halloween mood, and I watch it at least once a year. And now I've already done it.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's all we have to say on.
Pretty much, yeah. It was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of trivia for you. But that's what it is. A lot to say. A lot to encounter. If you haven't watched it and you weren't bothered by all of our spoilers, check it out for yourself. And if you have seen it but haven't in a while, now with all the trivia and the refreshment, go watch it again, in my opinion. Yeah. Do it. It's a great Halloween flick to bring you in the mood.
Go check it out. And yeah, Lasse, thank you so much for coming on, helping me out, do some of these Halloween shows.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. Love it.
Cool. Where can people catch your stuff?
Well, you can catch me, of course, on both of our podcasts. It's 90s Christmas Podcast, which might have some new episodes later too. I'm also on some other Christmas podcasts. When this comes out, also our episode we did with a Totally Red Christmas might be out by this point. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we podcasters, we live in this uncertain time frame.
We live in the future and we live in the past.
Yeah, which is kind of great and kind of terrifying in certain ways. But my own podcast is called Fans About Films. The most recent episode I've done was I had the composers for The Witcher as guests for the Netflix series, where we talked in great length about their work, which was great. You can find it on SoundCloud and iTunes. My YouTube channel is back on too in terms of German movie reviews sometimes. I recently reviewed the 2020 version of Mulan there. So if you know German, check it out. And and then I'm on Facebook, on Twitter at Lasse Vogt. You can find me there. That's basically most of the stuff I'm in and on.
Perfect. All right, so all of you guys, I will see you again tomorrow for another Halloween episode on the Halloween podcast. So, see you guys then.
See you guys then. Have a great fun with Halloween and take a big bite out of that pumpkin pie.